This is Nathan Hikes, an agronomist with GROWMARK FS. As we move into mid-August and the corn begins to mature, we're naturally going to want to have an idea of how much yield do we have out there. So today I'm going to walk through doing a yield estimate in a field of corn. To get our yield estimate, we need to have an idea of three things: how many plants we're going to have in an acre, how many rows around each ear we're going to have, and then how many kernels we have in each row. So the first thing we want to do is measure 1/1000th of an acre. That's a lot easier number to deal with than the entire acre. So if we have 30-inch rows, 1/1000th of an acre is 17 feet 5 inches. So if our row spacing changes, that changes the length. If we're in 20-inch rows, it's 26 feet 2 inches. And if we're in 30-inch rows, it's going to be, or in 15-inch rows, it's going to be 34 feet 10 inches. So I measure my 17 feet 5 inches. You can take a measuring tape with you. You can use a piece of string that's got a knot at either end, or if you measure what your boot is, you can step it off yourself. So I've already stepped off 1/1000th of an acre, and I've marked it here so I know where to start. I've gone on down through and counted, and in my 1/1000th of an acre, I have 31 ears. So it's important that if you've got a real runt plant that's not going to produce an ear, we don't want to count that because that's not contributing to yield. So I've gone down through, I've got 31 ears. So now I need to look at what are the size of these ears. So I've picked out 3 ears in this 1/1000th of an acre. You want to do that kind of systematically, so I've gone every 8th ear because you don't want to just be drawn to the biggest ears. You want this to be as accurate as possible. So here's one. Here's one. And there's my 3rd ear. So you can try to count them on the plan if you'd like. It's a little trickier though. So what I want to do for each ear is first to get the rows around. So you can either break it in half, or you can just mark your thumb somewhere where you're going to know where it is and count each row. So this one has 16 rows around. Now you're almost always going to have even rows because each pollen pollinates 2 rows side by side. So if you come up with an odd number, you might want to double check yourself. So I've got 16 rows around, and then I count on up the whole way through. And I've got 33 kernels in each row. So the question always comes, well, where do I stop at the end? So this one, fortunately, is pretty well filled out. So I'd probably stop right up in here. This one, we had a little, this one again, you don't want to go clear to the end because you don't have all of your rows there. So you want to stop right about the average where all your rows end. And once again, just the more conservative you are, the more conservative your estimate's going to be. You can certainly count all the way out to the end, but you're just going to be overestimating your yield. And generally we get paid by what goes in the grain bin, not what we count. So I've counted all 3 of these ears. So I've averaged about 17 rows around, so they're between 16 and 18. So that indicates we had decent growing conditions early on, not superb, but not bad. We're in the mid-30s for length, so we averaged 35. So once again, that's decent. But you do notice on some of these we had a little pollination issues, especially there. You can see some pollination issues. So this is a great opportunity to see if my corn doesn't yield great, what happens. So we probably had some hot, dry weather right around pollination timing that hurt some of this. So we know we've got 31 plants in 1/1000th of an acre. Our average ear is about 17 rows around by 35 in length. So then we can do a calculation on that. And there's a couple ways we can do that. One way is to just use a calculator because there are about 90,000 kernels per bushel. So we can multiply the number of plants by the number of rows by the number of kernels. That gives us our kernels in 1/1000th of an acre, and divide that by 90 to get bushels. So I can do the math with that right now, and that gave me 201 bushels per acre. Now there's also a lot of apps that can help if you don't want to remember that, or you want to do some other things. There's a lot of apps that you can use to do this calculation as well. So you can kind of look over my shoulder here. This is one that I use. One app we can use to calculate our yield is the FS Corn Yield Estimator app. So we open the app and add a new one. We can choose our location or give it a name. So we'll select our plant population. We'll enter for the 3 ears that we selected, what the number of rows and the kernels per row were, and you can do more ears if you harvest more. And then we have to select our kernels per bushel. So if you don't know, you can't weigh that, about 90,000 per bushel is average. Now if you're having excellent grain fill conditions, you can go lower, which means we'll have bigger kernels. If it's poor grain fill conditions, you can put more kernels per bushel for smaller kernels, but we'll go for about average here at 90. And that gave us 206 bushels per acre. So now you should be able to have a rough idea of how to figure out how much yield you have before harvest. This is a great time to do it. Obviously, the later you go, the more accurate it's going to be. Next time on Agronomy Minute, we're going to take a little bit deeper dive into looking more closely at 1/1000th of an acre and trying to get a better idea of what went well, what went wrong, and what can we improve in the future. So if you're interested in maximizing your yield and figuring out how to do that, please get a hold of your nearest GROWMARK FS location or salesperson today.